Tell me if this sounds familiar. You're new or a newer quilter, and you spend lots of time making your blocks, getting those 1/4 inch seams right, and then you have your topper done. Maybe it is a table runner like this, maybe it's a full quilt, and it's time to do the binding. You're like, okay, I can do the binding, I can sew long strips of fabric together, I can iron them in half, and I can sew them around. And then you get to the part where you need to make them match, and that is when your heart drops and you start groaning. Ugh, this is the part you struggle with. If this sounds like you, then you need to watch what I'm going to talk about next. There are many ways to match your binding, but this is the one that has never failed me yet and works perfectly every time. So let's get into it. Now that I have the binding sewn all the way around my table runner, it is time to join these final ends. You always start and leave about a 10 to 12 inch tail at the beginning, and then you have whatever length you have left over, at least 10 to 12 inches again, at the end. So how do we figure out exactly how and where to sew these two ends together at a beautiful angle, just like every other one, so nobody knows where we started or stopped? That is the quandary. There are many ways to do this, but this is by far the easiest, even though it is sometimes feels a little bit stressful. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my longest tail and I'm just going to cut a piece off of it. Then I'm going to open that up. Now I'm going to place the shorter tail flat down. I'm actually going to put a piece of white fabric so you can really see. This has nothing to do with joining the binding, but I just want you to be able to see what I am doing. So this is just laying flat. The raw edges are together. Now I'm going to take this little piece that we snipped and opened up, and I'm going to make sure the fold is perpendicular to the fold of the sewn on binding. This is going to tell us exactly where to cut both of these tails. The first tail we're going to cut on one side, and this is the part to me that is stressful because I'm like, oh, if I cut this wrong, then what am I going to do? But it has not failed me yet. Now I'm going to take this other piece and I'm going to line those raw edges up, just like we did the other one. And I'm going to put it across the top of this little piece, and I'm going to trim it on the opposite side. So the bottom one we trimmed here, the top one we're going to trim here. Now we need to get these together and draw the line just like we did when we made the original binding and sew at that angle. Now it's a little bit hard because look, there's barely any overlap, right? It's exactly what we need. So that is where a big clip comes in. You could also use a quilting pin if you don't have one of these. Take my quilt or my project or whatever it is, and I fold it, and then I just do a clip. So we're going to take the first one, we're going to open it, and we're just going to pivot it so that you see the folded part and put it right down there. Now this one, we're going to open it. We're going to open it like this. I'm going to put that down, line up that raw edge and this side, this cut edge and that raw edge. And then we're going to draw our line. And you do have to be a little more careful because we don't have that overhang like we did when we put this binding together. If you don't know how to do that, there's a link below this video to show you how to get to that video. But we want to draw a line from where these intersect, basically as a square. I'm going to put a pin on that line just so that we can double check that when we sew that, it's going to work. So I'm going to put a pin on either side, and I'm just going to sew on that line. Once that's sewn together, fold it and make sure it is the right length before you trim the point off of your binding. When you know it's right, you're going to trim a 1/4 inch from the seam line that you just sewed to get that bulk out. Then you're going to press that seam open, repress the binding in half, put it back down, matching those raw edges, and then just sew the rest of the distance for your binding. Now the binding is put together. I have sewn it on, which is just folding it over and either hand or machine stitching the binding to the back. Let's take a look at how this section that we just matched compares to the other sections of fabric that were matched before it was ever sewn onto the project. All right, let's use some clips to mark. So this is a section that we just matched for the beginning and the end of the tails, and I'm going to put a little red clip next to that. Then another area that was matched before the binding was ever put on is right here. I'm going to clip that with the blue. And then there's another one up on this side. So let's see how I can get this folded down. So that one is right there. So as you can see, each of these seams is at the same exact angle, and you would never know which one was done at the end and which two were done before the binding was ever added. That means that this is done perfectly, and you can do it every time too. So now, whether you are a brand new quilter or have been quilting for a while and have just always struggled joining that binding a little bit, your troubles are over. You can just sit back, have fun, make and bind whatever you want with confidence. I hope you subscribe to my channel. Leave me a comment. Let me know if you have tried this before, what other challenges you have with quilting and sewing. I am Tara Reed. I'm a fabric designer, and I love to teach about sewing and quilting. And of course, I would love to teach what you would like to learn. Have a fantastic day. Happy sewing and happy quilting.